night was silent, oppressively silent. I stepped off the cracked wooden porch, my boots sinking slightly into the damp, cold soil of the deserted street. Fog hugged the ground, curling around the street lamps like ghostly fingers. Something was off. The village of Millersfield had always been quiet, sleepy, but tonight, a gnawing unease rooted me to the spot. I had come home late from the diner, and the warm glow of the streetlights, my comforting nightly companion, felt alien, unnatural. Shadows stretched longer than they should have, twisting and writhing across walls and empty porches. I noticed it immediately. The Johnson house, the front door, gone. Just open space leading into the black maw of the house. I blinked, but it wasn't a trick of the eye. The door frame was intact, yet no door remained. Inside, nothing moved, nothing breathed. I called his name. Mark. Doc. My neighbor. My friend since childhood. Only silence answered. Then, a faint scratch. It came from upstairs. A child's voice. No. Too low. Metallic. Unnatural. I climbed the steps cautiously, each creak loud in the quiet, each breath a thunderclap in my ears. The air smelled wrong. Not just dust or decay, something chemical, coppery, almost alive. The hallway stretched endlessly, though I knew the house layout well. On the wall, symbols burned faintly into the plaster, glowing like embers. I reached out. My fingers brushed the mark, and the air shivered around me. A whisper. Why are you here? I spun around. Empty hallway. No one. I stepped forward again. Then I saw it. Mark hanging, suspended midair, his eyes wide with terror. But his body, not quite his own. His limbs contorted, twisting in impossible angles. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through my bones. I stumbled back, and the room shifted. The walls rippled like liquid, and the symbols multiplied. A bright white light blinded me. Then darkness swallowed everything. I woke outside. The Johnson house, normal again. Door intact. Porch empty. Fog dissipated. But my stomach turned as I saw the scratch on my arm. Not mine. Someone, or something, had left it there. I ran home, heart hammering, mind racing. I knew one thing. Whatever had taken Mark, it wasn't finished, and it was waiting for me. Morning brought no comfort. The sun barely pierced the lingering fog that clung to the village streets, and even in daylight, Millersfield felt wrong. I paced my small kitchen, staring at the scratch on my arm, still fresh, red and angry. My hands trembled, and my stomach churned, as if warning me that last night was only the beginning. I needed answers. I grabbed my camera, my notebook, and my recorder. If I was losing my mind, I needed proof. And if this was real, I had to understand what had happened. First, I sought witnesses. Old Mrs. Carver, perched in her rocking chair by the window, watched me like a hawk. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Gone. Just gone. Like smoke." Her eyes darted to the sky, where the morning fog twisted strangely, as though alive. On the town forum, I discovered more. Stories of lights hovering over the village, people vanishing, unexplained sounds at night. Some called it the harvest, a local myth older than anyone alive. People disappear. One anonymous post read, They come back, but never the same. I returned to the Johnson house, now cordoned off by police, who claimed everything was normal. I snuck past the barriers, my boots crunching on gravel, the smell of damp earth and decay rising. Inside, the air was thick and cold. The hallway stretched unnaturally, the walls shimmering like heat over asphalt. Symbols, like the one burned into the wall last night, flickered at the edge of my vision. I felt a pulse in the air, almost like a heartbeat. Whispers curled around me, impossible to locate, just beyond comprehension. They're watching, waiting, testing, I muttered, unsure if I spoke aloud or if my mind echoed it. I found Mark's notebook on the kitchen table. His handwriting was jagged, frantic. Faye. Not human. Studying. Cannot. Escape. Remember. A chill ran down my spine. He hadn't returned. He had been left behind, or changed, in ways I didn't want to imagine. As I turned to leave, a low hum vibrated through the floorboards. Shadows shifted unnaturally, pooling in corners, stretching toward me. I froze, heart hammering, breath ragged. The symbols on the walls glowed faintly. A message I couldn't read, but somehow understood. And then, a light appeared at the end of the hallway. Not sunlight, not artificial. Something else. It pulsed, beckoning me, promising answers and danger. I knew then. I had no choice. I had to follow. The hallway stretched endlessly, though I knew the house like the back of my hand. Yet every step felt unfamiliar, as if the walls themselves were breathing, shifting, observing. The hum from before had grown louder, resonating deep in my chest, making my teeth chatter involuntarily. I reached the living room and froze. Old photographs lined the mantel. Familiar faces, smiling. Except the eyes. The eyes in each photo flickered, briefly, like living coals. A whisper curled around my ear. They remember you. I spun, but no one was there. I took a shaky breath. The room smelled of burnt metal and damp wood, something rotting just out of sight. A photograph of Mark shifted in my hands. His face was elongated, unnatural, eyes black, and then normal again. I stumbled backward toward the hallway, my pulse racing, every nerve screaming. The symbols burned brighter, jagged and pulsating in rhythm with my heart. I recognized them. Ancient markings, reported in old archives, used to mark areas of disappearance, poetry of terror written in fire and shadow. I needed answers. I remembered the old town archives, dusty boxes in the library basement, reports of missing people, strange lights, low humming sounds in the night. Some were deemed UFO sightings, some dismissed as hysteria. But patterns emerged, dates, locations, emotional states of victims. Something was collecting them. My hands shook as I scribbled notes, the whispers growing insistent. You will stay. You will stay. The temperature dropped, cold seeping through my clothes into my bones. A metallic taste filled my mouth. My heartbeat thundered, deafening, as shadows stretched across the floor, bending and twisting unnaturally. I turned toward the basement door. Something pulsed from below. Bright, alive, beckoning. Every instinct screamed to run, but curiosity, fear, and desperation forced me down the steps. The walls closed in, and then I saw them. Figures, suspended, human shapes, yet distorted, unnatural. A low vibration filled the room, a song of suffering and study. Eyes flickered in the darkness, some mine, some Mark's, some I didn't recognize. They were alive, and they were not. I felt a hand brush my shoulder. Not flesh, not air, but something else. A whisper directly in my mind. You belong here now. I stumbled back, the basement stretching farther than possible, walls melting into darkness. And then I realized the hum wasn't outside me. It was inside. My own heartbeat, my own terror, feeding them. The basement seemed infinite, the air thick, vibrating with a low, resonant hum that crawled into my chest. The smell, metal, decay, something like burned ozone, made my stomach twist violently. Shadows pooled in the corners, moving against the natural flow of light, and I knew, with a sinking certainty, that I had crossed the threshold. The figures hung motionless, suspended by thin, translucent filaments that glimmered in the dim light, their faces contorted, mouths frozen in silent screams. Some blinked, but not in unison. Their eyes rolled in directions that made no sense. A metallic rasp filled the room, like 1,000 whispers pressed into one note. I stepped closer, drawn by a force I could neither resist nor understand. The filaments pulsed, feeding off the slightest movement, the faintest sound. I felt my own pulse spike, my limbs heavy, my breath shallow. A voice, not audible, but inside my skull, spoke. We see you. We feel you. I tried to back away, but the floor seemed to shift beneath me, rising and falling like waves. The walls dissolved into shadows that reached for me, cold, whispering, alive. Every step forward made my mind reel. Memories twisting, emotions amplifying. I remembered Mark's notebook, the scratch on my arm, the symbols on the walls, and then I saw it. A small console, alien in design, pulsing with faint blue light. Screens showed faces, Millersfield residents, past and present, trapped, writhing, eyes wide in terror. Numbers scrolled, emotional readings, heart rates, brainwave activity. A catalog of fear. A sensation gripped me. Hunger, curiosity, terror, all at once. I realized this wasn't random. They weren't just taking people. They were studying us, our emotions, our memories, extracted and analyzed. And I was next. I stumbled forward, touching the console. Lights flashed, the air shimmered, and I felt a jolt inside my mind. A memory, not mine, flooding me. Faces I had never seen, feelings I had never felt. Terror, despair, pain, and then a whisper. Join us or break. I fell back, gasping, sweat stinging my eyes. The basement walls now moved like liquid, the suspended figures turning slowly toward me. A low hum became a roar, echoing in my skull. My thoughts fragmented. What was real? What was illusion? What had already been taken from me? And then, in a heartbeat, silence. I looked up. One figure floated toward me, hand extended. It was Mark. And yet, it was not Mark. A scream clawed at the back of my throat. The air pulsed. The basement stretched further than any building should allow. And I knew I was trapped. The basement, or whatever this place truly was, had no ceiling. Shadows stretched endlessly upward, folding into darkness that felt alive, aware, watching. My lungs burned with every breath. The air was thick, metallic, a taste of iron that made my stomach churn. Every heartbeat felt amplified, echoing in the empty space, syncing with the low hum that thrummed through the floor. I tried to move, but my legs felt heavy, like sinking into thick mud. The suspended figures turned in unison, all eyes, human, inhuman, fixed on me. I could hear whispers, overlapping, insistent. Voices I knew and did not. Stay, join, become. Panic clawed at my chest. I remembered Mark, the scratch on my arm, the notebook, fragments of memories, both mine and stolen, twisted together in a dizzying spiral. I stumbled toward the console, desperate for answers, but the filaments attached to the floating bodies writhed, reaching toward me. The walls began to ripple, liquid-like, distorting my sense of space. Doors appeared where there were none. Shadows moved independently of the light. A scream, not from me, not from any human, pierced the silence, and I realized it came from deep within the structure itself. I grabbed the console again. The screens flashed with faces, some familiar, some horrifyingly altered. Emotions poured off them. Fear, confusion, despair. Each sensation striking me physically. A whisper. Your mind, your fear, fuels us. I staggered back, clutching my head. The temperature dropped. My breath formed misty clouds that hung and twisted like living entities. I heard footsteps behind me. Soft, deliberate, but impossible. I spun. Nothing. Yet the whispers continued, more urgent, insistent. Do not resist. You cannot escape. My vision blurred. Time became meaningless. Moments stretched, contracted. I remembered every disappearance I had studied, every report, every witness, every discarded memory. All of it led here. I was not walking into darkness. I was stepping into the mechanism itself. A hand, human-shaped but elongated, cold, gliding toward me, touched my shoulder. I felt my mind strain, images and emotions pouring in from centuries of victims. I screamed, but the sound echoed back altered, distorted, feeding the hum that had become the heartbeat of this place. And then, a whisper, soft, almost intimate. You cannot leave. You belong. No, John de East. I collapsed, the basement folding around me like a living, breathing entity. Every shadow, every filament, every suspended figure, pressing, pulling, consuming. I knew, in the deepest part of myself, that I had crossed the point of no return. The harvest had claimed me. Time slipped. I blinked, and the basement was gone, replaced by a hallway I didn't recognize. Flickering fluorescent lights stretched endlessly above, buzzing like trapped insects. The floor was slick beneath my boots, reflecting warped fragments of my face. The air reeked of disinfectant and something metallic, sharp, blood, or something close to it. A low vibration traveled through the walls, rhythmic, like a slow mechanical heartbeat. Somewhere far off, I heard screaming, muffled repeating, looping the same few seconds again and again. I pressed my palms against the walls. Cold, with sun ascendant at sea. The texture felt like concrete, but under it, there was movement. I pulled my hand back, and a faint outline remained on the surface, glowing blue for an instant before fading. My breath caught. The hum was reacting to me. Down the corridor, a door opened on its own. Slowly, deliberately. Inside was a room bathed in pale light. Metal tables, straps, old medical instruments, and on the far wall, a mirror. I walked closer. The reflection wasn't mine. A man stood there, trembling, eyes wide with terror. He wore my clothes, but his face was older, gaunt, hollowed out. He whispered through the glass, "Don't let them finish." I stumbled back. The mirror cracked down the center, and the reflection kept moving. Without me, it reached toward the surface, and for a heartbeat, I felt his fingertips brush mine. Then he was gone. The mirror went black, absorbing all light, leaving only the reflection of the surgical table behind me. A sound, metal on metal, echoed through the corridor. Footsteps, slow, steady, mechanical. I ducked behind the table, heart pounding. Through the narrow gap beneath the door, a beam of light swept across the floor, pure white, cutting, searching. The door creaked open. Something entered. Its shape wavered like a mirage, tall, thin, wrapped in pulsating strands of light. I couldn't look directly at it. My vision blurred. My mind recoiled. Every instinct screamed to run, yet I couldn't move. The creature stopped. It tilted its head, curious, almost human. Then the lights flickered violently, and in that moment of darkness, it was suddenly inches from me. I felt the vibration in my bones. It whispered, not with sound, but directly inside my skull. "You were chosen for clarity." Pain exploded behind my eyes. Memories not mine. Images of stars, experiments, cold metal halls flooded through me, and I saw rows of people, hundreds of them, wired into machines. Every heartbeat, every emotion, every nightmare recorded. A harvest of consciousness. The creature leaned closer. Its face shifted. Marks, then mine, then no face at all. I screamed, but my voice came out distorted, layered with echoes that weren't human. Reality fractured. The wall stretched outward like liquid glass, and suddenly, I was falling into light. Died. I landed, or something like it, on a cold, metallic floor. The room was vast, impossibly vast, filled with rows of suspended figures. Some I recognized. Mark, the old librarian neighbors, all wired into machines, filaments glimmering in the dim light. Their eyes were vacant, yet they screamed silently. A hum, deep and resonant, filled every corner of the chamber. It wasn't just sound, it was presence, pressure, bias, control. I realized then, their minds, their memories, their fears were feeding something beyond comprehension. I staggered forward. One of the suspended figures shifted. Mark, ... His mouth opened, forming words without sound. They take pieces, piece by piece. Don't let them take yours. I touched his hand. It passed through me, cold and unreal. In the center of the room, a machine hummed with blue light. Cables extending like veins across the chamber. Screens displayed graphs, faces, memories, mine included. A realization hit me. A fragment of my mind had already been recorded, cataloged. A fragment of me already gone. I tried to run. The hum intensified, vibrating through my bones, clouding my thoughts, bending reality. Shadows twisted into forms I could not name. Every step forward felt like falling backward through layers of memory. Then, a whisper, clear this time, almost intimate. You will join them, or break. I saw visions, previous victims, screaming silently, trapped in loops of their own fear. Some were young, some old, all caught in the same cycle. I reached the machine, desperate, trembling, cables twisted, reaching toward me, and I felt my thoughts slipping, memories fading. Faces, family, friends, blurred and dissolved into streams of data on the screens. I screamed, trying to cling to myself, to anchor my consciousness. The filaments lashed onto my wrists, cold, electric, invasive. I felt a part of me being drawn out, copied, measured. Panic surged, my mind fractured. I could hear pieces of me screaming from the machines. A figure approached, slender, impossibly tall, wrapped in light. It tilted its head. My memories, my emotions, reflected in its form. I understood. They weren't killing us. Not exactly. They were harvesting us. Not bodies, not souls, but fear, memory, consciousness. And I realized the truth. Even if I escaped, even if I ran, a part of me would remain here, forever cataloged, studied, never free. The harvest didn't take the body. It took the self. I looked at Mark again. He nodded. Not a nod of approval, but of warning. You're next. I screamed, but the hum swallowed me. The room pulsed with life and death. I could feel it. The pull, the obsession, the inevitability. Every fiber of my being screamed to understand, to uncover the pattern, to see the truth behind the harvest. And yet, every step closer filled me with terror, my heart hammering, stomach twisting. I wandered through the chamber, past rows of suspended figures, watching, waiting. Each face I passed whispered fragments of memories, screams and warnings. The longer I stayed, the more I heard, the more I saw. The line between myself and the harvest blurred. I reached the central console again. Screens flickered, showing Millersfield, past, present, futures that hadn't happened yet. Figures moved in patterns, their lives dissected, replayed, harvested. I realized this wasn't just a study. It was a cycle. Every disappearance, every scream, every fear, catalog. My hands hovered over the controls, trembling. Whispers rose in intensity, overlapping, screaming in languages I shouldn't understand. I felt my mind fragmenting further. Shards of thought pulled toward the machines. And yet, I couldn't stop. A flash of movement caught my eye. Mark, or the husk that remained, hung from a filament, struggling. He turned his hollow eyes toward me, pleading, "You'll lose yourself if you don't leave." But curiosity, fear, and obsession tangled together, chaining me to this place. The hum grew louder, vibrating through my chest, sensing with my heartbeat. The walls pulsed, the floor rippled. Reality tore at the edges, glimpses of other worlds flashing through the walls, windows, and floor. Every scream, every whisper, every stolen memory fused into one chaotic symphony of terror. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. The harvest's presence pressed into me, probing, feeding. I saw visions of myself, stretched, broken, parts of me already cataloged. The The line between observer and observed vanished. And then, the figure in light approached. It reached out, not to harm, but to envelop, to integrate. Fear, curiosity, desperation, all siphoned into the pulsing machine at the center. I realized I had become part of the harvest already. One thought remained. Escape was impossible, not just for my body, but for my mind. And as I screamed, the whisper echoed, final and certain. You are home now. The chamber pulsed, shadows and filaments twisting around me, feeding, consuming the abyss. I was falling, or perhaps standing still, the distinction lost in the folds of reality. Around me a harvest pulsed, living, breathing, consuming. Every filament, every shadow, every echo of fear, intertwined into a vast, incomprehensible entity. I could feel myself splitting. A fragment of my mind clung to memory, to identity. But the rest was being drawn into the machine, measured, analyzed, catalogued. The suspended figures turned slowly, eyes fixed on me, screaming silently. Mark, or what remained of him, floated past, whispering, "It doesn't stop. It never stops." I stumbled forward, reaching for the central console. Screens flashed with infinite images. Faces, places, memories, my own among them. The hum intensified, vibrating through my bones, sensing with my heartbeat, my fear, my very thoughts. I screamed, but my voice was layered with hundreds of echoes, each scream a stolen fragment from someone else. The figure in light appeared before me, towering, inscrutable. It tilted its head, observing, curious, patient. I tried to move, tried to resist, but my body felt like water, unanchored, floating toward inevitability. Whispers filled my skull. You are part. You are nothing. You are everything. A sudden clarity struck. The harvest was not malicious. It was methodical, indifferent, a machine of extraction. It took pieces, measured responses, recorded fear and memory, and left the husks behind. I saw myself, split, observer, participant, victim. The suspended figures reached out, not violently, but inevitability pressing in. I understood then, resistance was futile. The fragments of myself, clinging to identity, screamed in protest, but the pulse, the hum, the light, drew me inexorably closer. A hand, familiar yet alien, touched my mind, and my consciousness trembled. I felt memories slipping, emotions being siphoned, sensations catalogued and stored. The hum became a voice, clear, final. You will join us. You will remember nothing, yet remember everything. Not. My vision blurred. Faces of the harvested flashed before me, their silent screams, their vacant eyes, all absorbed into the pulse of the machine. I struggled, clawed at reality, at identity, at anything. But the abyss held me tight, and in that moment I realized I was no longer just a human. I was a conduit. The room pulsed violently, shadows spiraling, filaments wrapping, light bending. I screamed, my consciousness fragmenting in pieces, joining in the harvest. And then, silence, an endless, heavy, oppressive silence. Somewhere, deep inside, a fragment of me remained, watching, remembering. Trapped in the machine, part of the abyss forever. The harvest had claimed me. Not my body, not my soul, but the essence that made me. Me. And I understood the final truth. Escape was never possible. I was home. The last silence. I opened my eyes. Or what passed for eyes in this place. The basement, the corridor, the chamber, all dissolved into a boundless void. The hum of the harvest filled everything, vibrating through my bones, resonating in my mind. I was everywhere and nowhere. My body lay in the empty chamber, pale and motionless, while my consciousness drifted, fragmented, part of the machine. Faces, memories, emotions, millions flowed through me, and yet I retained just enough of myself to know horror. I saw the humans, past and present, all trapped, catalogued, harvested. Their fear, despair, and confusion had become part of the rhythm, the pulse, the endless cycle. I tried to reach them, to warn them, to escape, but I was no longer whole. Whispers surrounded me, layering over my own thoughts. Part of us, part of them, forever. I realized that my mind, my identity, had already been fractured, catalogued, and merged into the infinite rhythm of the harvest. A memory, distant yet painfully vivid, surfaced. Mark, the notebook, the first hum in the hallway. I remembered fear, confusion, curiosity, desperation. All stripped from me, stored, measured, and I understood the final truth. I would never leave. Not the basement, not the void, not the harvest, yet a fragment of awareness remained, watching, feeling, remembering, a whisper of what once was human. I sensed others, some still alive, some already absorbed, threads of consciousness scattered, interwoven into the entity. The void pulsed, shadows twisting, light bending impossibly. I realized there was no escape. The harvest was infinite, patient, unyielding. Every scream, every stolen memory, every fragment of a person became part of the cycle, and I had become part of it. Somewhere deep inside, a single thought persisted. I was trapped, forever, and yet I remembered the horror, the fear, the truth. The last silence was not quiet. It was full of echoes, of whispers, of every lost fragment of humanity, and I was part of it, trapped, or observing, remembering, forever.